Welcome to the deep dive. Usually, when we talk about the mind, there's this expectation of rational control, like driving a car. You see a turn approaching, you turn the steering wheel, and the car just follows your exact command.
Right. It's like a direct mechanism, cause and effect. You decide to do something and your body executes it.
Yeah, we really like to believe we are the ones holding that wheel, right? Making every single choice based on pure logic. But then you look at actual human behavior, like why we self-sabotage or why we get sick with anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
Or why we inexplicably fail at the very things we try the absolute hardest to achieve. And suddenly, that steering wheel feels completely disconnected from the tires.
It's a terrifying feeling, honestly.
Mhm.
But it points to a reality that psychology has been grappling with for well over a century. The conscious mind, the part of you that thinks it's in charge, is actually just a very thin layer sitting on top of a massive unseen engine room.
And that engine room is exactly what we are exploring today. We're looking at a 1963 classic by Dr. Joseph Murphy called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind.
Such a fascinating book.
It really is. Murphy was a pioneer of the New Thought movement, and his central premise is just incredibly bold. He states, "As a man thinketh in his subconscious mind, so is he."
Which is a huge claim.
Right. But if you know the show, you know we aren't just going to look at his claims and, take them at face value. We are going to explore the mechanics of why this works.
Exactly.
We're breaking down how our habitual thinking literally molds our physical reality, our wealth, our relationships. So by the end of this deep dive, you will have the exact blueprint to stop acting as your own worst enemy.
That's the key right there, because Murphy makes a crucial distinction right away, just to help us understand this architecture. You don't actually have two minds.
Right, it's just one.
Exactly, one mind, but it operates in two entirely different spheres of activity. So you have the conscious and the subconscious.
Okay, so how do they differ?
Well, the conscious mind is objective. It reasons, it analyzes, it chooses. It's that surface level of your awareness. The subconscious mind, on the other hand, is subjective.
It's the engine room.
Right. It does not reason. It does not argue. It is the creator.
Yeah.
It basically just takes whatever the conscious mind accepts as true and begins bringing it to pass.
Murphy actually uses this great ship analogy in the book. He says the conscious mind is the captain standing up on the bridge.
Oh, I love this analogy.
It's so good. The captain looks out, analyzes the weather, checks the compass, and signals orders down to the crew. But the crew is deep down in the hull, right? In the engine room.
Yeah, they can't see the horizon.
Exactly. They don't have the compass. They just control the boilers and the gauges based entirely on the captain's orders. So if the captain makes a terrible mistake and orders the ship right toward a jagged reef, the crew will just drive the ship directly into the rocks.
Without hesitation, they simply obey. They don't have the capacity to, second guess the order.
Right. It makes me think of a more modern analogy for you listening. It's like your conscious mind is the programmer and your subconscious is the computer executing the code.
That's a perfect equivalent.
The computer doesn't judge the code. It doesn't say, hey, this line of code is going to crash the entire system. Maybe we shouldn't run this. It just executes whatever you input.
And because the subconscious doesn't judge, it is highly, almost dangerously reactive to the nature of your thoughts.
Yeah.
There's this brilliant example in the text about Enrico Caruso dealing with a severe system crash, essentially.
Wait, Caruso, one of the most famous opera singers in history.
Yes, the legendary tenor. And right before a massive performance, he was just struck with paralyzing stage fright.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his throat muscles actually constricted, sweat was pouring down his face. His conscious mind was terrified, thinking, they are going to laugh at me, I can't sing.
So his internal captain was panicking.
Precisely. And his subconscious, that computer, took that input literally. It responded to the fear by completely shutting down his vocal cords.
A total lockdown. So how did he deal with that? Did he just have to cancel the show? Because, if your throat muscles literally shut down, you can't just wish that away.
He didn't cancel, but he also didn't try to, logically reason with his fear. Instead, he started yelling backstage.
Literally yelling at himself.
Literally yelling out loud. He said, the little me wants to strangle the big me within Get Out. The big me is going to sing.
That is wild.
Yeah, he consciously commanded the irrational fears of his subconscious. The little me was his panicking, analytical mind, and the big me was the limitless, autonomic tower of his subconscious.
So by speaking authoritatively to it, he overwrote the bad code.
Exactly. He commanded the engine room to release the vital forces, and he went out and gave a majestic performance.
It's fascinating because he used intense emotion to overwrite the program, which brings up a really crucial point about the architecture of the system. If the subconscious blindly follows orders, we really have to look closely at where those orders are coming from. And Murphy categorizes them into two buckets. You have autosuggestion, which is what we tell ourselves, and heterosuggestion, which is what other people tell us.
And this is where we have to establish a core rule of how the brain works. A suggestion from the outside world has absolutely no power over you unless your conscious mind accepts it as true.
But the moment you do accept it, the results can be, well, profound.
And sometimes horrifying.
Yeah, we have to talk about the danger of autosuggestion because there is this deeply tragic story in the book. A father had a daughter with a crippling form of arthritis and an incurable skin disease.
It's such a tough story to read.
It is. And this father, just out of total desperation and love, kept repeating over and over, I would give my right arm to see my daughter cured. He basically made it his absolute mantra.
Right. He was giving a literal, deeply emotional order to his subconscious mind. He wasn't speaking metaphorically to his internal computer.
And the computer executed it. The family was in a car crash. The father's right arm was torn off at the shoulder.
Just brutal.
And according to Murphy's account, immediately afterward, the daughter's arthritis and skin condition vanished. Now, whether you view that as a mystical universe responding or, simply a staggering coincidence, Murphy's point is clear. The subconscious takes you literally.
It doesn't have a sarcasm filter.
No. It cannot take a joke.
It completely lacks the capacity for irony. And the danger is just as real with heterosuggestion, the suggestions coming from outside sources.
Like other people's opinions.
Exactly. Murphy recounts a story about a relative of his in India who visited a crystal gazer. And this gazer told the man he had a bad heart and predicted he would die at the next new moon.
Let me guess, the man was perfectly healthy before this.
Completely healthy. Never had a heart issue. But he accepted this suggestion entirely. His conscious mind, the watchman at the gate, just let the idea in.
So the subconscious went to work executing the code.
Yes. He arranged his will, he told everyone he was going to die, and he essentially terrified his own nervous system to the point where his physical body simply shut down at the new moon.
He killed himself through his own accepted belief.
He did.
Okay, but let me push back here for a second. For someone listening right now, how does this translate to the modern world? Because, we aren't usually visiting crystal gazers.
Sure.
But we are constantly bombarded with toxic opinions, doom scrolling, negative news cycles, people telling us the economy is collapsing or that our generation is doomed. If accepting a suggestion is that dangerous, can you really just reject the entire modern world?
Well, you have to build a filter. What Murphy is describing here is essentially what we now call the nocebo effect in modern medicine.
The nocebo effect, right, the opposite of placebo.
Exactly. If a doctor tells you a harmless sugar pill will cause nausea, your brain will literally synthesize the chemicals to make your stomach churn. Your belief creates the physical reality.
How do we stop that?
Murphy's solution is that you must use constructive autosuggestion as a reconditioning therapy. You have to build a mental firewall. When the news tells you the world is ending, you consciously reject it and replace it with a positive premise.
Because your subconscious only acts on what your conscious mind allows past the gate.
Right. You are in control of the gate.
So following that logic, if a negative belief can literally synthesize stress hormones to stop a healthy heart, then positive suggestions must have the power to do the exact opposite.
Precisely. They have the power to heal. This is the placebo effect on a massive scale. The premise here is that the subconscious mind built your body from a single invisible cell.
It manages your autonomic nervous system.
Yeah, it knows how to heal a cut on your finger without you consciously directing the white blood cells.
Yeah.
Its natural tendency is always lifeward.
Lifeward, I like that.
So healing, in Murphy's view, is simply removing the conscious mental blocks like fear and anxiety that disrupt this natural autonomic harmony.
The historical proof he brings in for this is just wild. He talks about Dr. James S. Stile, the Scottish surgeon working in Bengal in the 1840s. Now, just to set the scene for you listening, this is before ether. This is before modern chemical anesthesia.
And crucially, it's before Pasteur or Lister discovered bacteria. So there's absolutely no concept of sterilized instruments.
Right. So infection and mortality rates for surgery back then were terrifying. But Dr. Esdale performed over 400 major surgeries. We're talking amputations, tumor removals, using only mental anesthesia.
It's almost unbelievable.
He put the patients in a hypnotic state and suggested to their subconscious minds that they would feel no pain, and he also commanded that no infection would develop.
And the mortality rate was incredibly low, something like 2 or 3%.
Which defies all the medical odds of the 1840s.
By putting them in that hypnotic state, Esdale bypassed the conscious mind's terror. The subconscious mind, which controls the immune response, just accepted the suggestion and prevented infection.
But the crazy part is it doesn't even require a surgeon or hypnosis. It just requires blind faith. There's that other story of an Australian man whose lungs were ravaged by tuberculosis.
Oh, the sidewalk splinter.
Yes. His son wanted to cure him, so he picked up a random wooden splinter from the sidewalk. He took it to a jeweler, had it set in a ring, and then gave it to his father, claiming it was a piece of the true cross that he had paid $500 for.
Such a massive lie. But
A huge lie. But the father snatched the ring, placed it over his chest, prayed silently, and went to sleep. And the next morning, the clinic tests showed he was completely cured. The tuberculosis was gone.
which is the ultimate proof of the placebo effect. It wasn't the sidewalk splinter that healed him.
Right. Just like it's not the sugar pill in modern medical trials that cures the patient. It makes me think of a house that's already wired for electricity. The power is sitting right there in the walls.
Yeah, waiting to be used.
The splinter or the sugar pill or the hypnotic suggestion is just the action of flipping the master breaker switch. It allows the current that was already there to finally flow.
That's a great structural framing for it.
Yeah.
The autonomic healing power of the subconscious is the electricity. Blind faith is simply the mechanism that flips the switch.
But if it's just about flipping a switch, I can hear someone listening right now saying, okay, I've tried this. I've stood in front of a mirror and shouted, I am healthy or I am a millionaire until I'm blue in the face and nothing happened. Why does this system fail for so many people?
Because of what the French psychologist Émile Coué called the law of reversed effort. This is the exact reason why trying too hard guarantees failure.
Trying too hard is the problem.
Yes. When your desires and your imagination are in conflict, your imagination always wins. Always. Mental effort implies opposition.
Wait, unpack that a bit.
Well, if you're standing in a mirror saying, I am trying so hard to force this to happen, you are actively running a line of code that says, this is incredibly difficult and I am currently failing.
The book uses the analogy of a plank, which illustrates this perfectly. If I put a wooden plank flat on the floor, you'd walk across it without a second thought.
Easily.
But if I take that exact same plank and suspend it 20 feet in the air between two walls, are you going to walk it?
Your will and your desire say, walk the plank. But your imagination immediately pictures you falling to your death.
And the imagination wins.
Every time. The dominant idea falling conquers the desire to walk. The more you use your willpower to force yourself to take a step, the more paralyzed you become. Because willpower requires acknowledging the danger.
It's the blank exam phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely.
You study all night, you walk into the test, and your mind goes entirely blank. The harder you grit your teeth and try to force the answers to come, the further away they go. You're essentially telling your brain, this is an emergency, panic.
And then what happens when you leave?
The second you hand in the blank paper and walk out into the hallway, the pressure drops, the willpower stalks, and every single answer suddenly floods back into your brain.
Exactly. Willpower creates friction. It's like opening the terminal on our computer and typing, do not crash, while actively running a malware script of anxiety.
So if I'm not supposed to try, how do I actually get my subconscious to accept my goals?
The answer Murphy provides is the Baudouin technique, which relies entirely on the sleepy, drowsy state.
Okay, bypassing the friction.
Right. When you are in a state akin to sleep right before you drift off at night, or right as you wake up, your conscious mind's resistance is lowered. The analytical captain basically steps away from the wheel.
So you just sneak the code in.
Exactly. In this state, you simply imagine the feeling of the end result. You don't worry about the how. You condense your desire into a short phrase like a lullaby, and you repeat it slowly and peacefully.
If that drowsy state is when the firewall is lowered, it makes me wonder what happens when we go all the way under. I mean, we spend a third of our lives asleep. And while the conscious mind is offline, the engine room is working the night shift.
Oh, the subconscious never sleeps. It's highly active. It's doing the physical maintenance, digesting your food, repairing tissues.
Yeah.
but is also solving complex problems without the interference of conscious anxiety.
And the history of scientific breakthroughs happening in the state is incredible, like Dr. Frederick Banting, who basically dreamed up the origin of insulin. Yes.
Or Ray Hammerstrom, a steel mill worker who was trying to fix a faulty mill switch. The engineers couldn't figure it out, but he fell asleep and dreamed the exact mathematical design, waking up and sketching it out for a $15,000 reward.
It's amazing.
Professor Agassiz famously reconstructed a fossil fish in his sleep after staring at it for weeks. It's like when you stop trying to remember an actor's name and 3 hours later, while you're washing dishes, it just pops into your head.
Because the conscious mind's linear stressed thinking is turned off, allowing the subconscious to make lateral, divergent connections. But I think the most intense illustration of this power is the story of Dr. Lothar von Blankschmidt.
Oh, the prisoner in the coal mine.
Yes. He was a prisoner in a brutal Russian coal mine after the Second World War. Men were dying all around him. He knew his only chance was escape, but he was surrounded by armed guards and commissars.
So how does a mind hack get you past armed guards? By letting the subconscious find the blind spot. Every single night, instead of dwelling on the terror of the camp, he vividly imagined himself walking down Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles.
Such a specific contrast to a coal mine.
He pictured the stores, the restaurants, the feeling of driving a car. He made the mental image as real to himself as the trees outside the prison compound.
So he programmed the destination into the GPS, but he let the subconscious figure out the route.
Exactly. And one morning, during the daily lineup, the guard called his number, 17. He stepped forward. For some reason, the guard was momentarily distracted and looked away.
Okay.
When the guard turned back, he accidentally skipped to the next man and called him 17. Dr. von Blankschmidt realized his absence wouldn't be noted until evening. He just walked right out of the camp undetected.
That is unbelievable.
He eventually made his way across Poland to Switzerland and miraculously ended up as a guest in a home in Los Angeles, being driven down the exact boulevard he had visualized in the coal mine.
That gives you, listening right now, such an actionable tool. Instead of taking your worries to bed, instead of scrolling through anxieties and feeding bad code to the engine room, give your subconscious a specific job to do right before you drift off. Ask it for the perfect solution to whatever you're facing, and actually expect the answer.
And this isn't just about escaping prison camps or curing diseases. The book emphasizes that this governs the very practical applications of our daily lives, like our bank accounts and our marriages.
Yes, let's look at wealth, because Murphy is very blunt here. He describes poverty as a mental disease. Wealth, he says, is not about the sweat of your brow. Wealth is a subconscious conviction.
The book argues there is a massive, incredibly common stumbling block to wealth, and that is envy.
Envy.
If you look at someone successful and say, oh, they're a crook, they got lucky, I resent their money, you are actively programming your internal computer to associate wealth with negativity. Murphy says criticizing the wealth of others causes wealth to take wings and fly away.
And we can actually ground that in modern neuroscience. There's a network in the brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS.
Right, the filter.
Exactly. It filters the millions of bits of information around you and only shows you what you deem important. If your subconscious code says wealth is evil, your RAS will literally blind you to money-making opportunities because it categorizes wealth as a threat. You cannot attract what your brain is programmed to condemn.
That's a brilliant way to frame it. The RAS executes the code.
Yeah.
There's a story of a young pharmacist who was barely making $40 a week. He couldn't afford his own store, but he started visualizing his dream pharmacy.
In that drowsy state.
Yes. He would mentally arrange the bottles, picture himself serving customers, smell the medicine. He did this consistently. His subconscious code changed, which meant his outer world eventually conformed.
What happened?
He got a job at a chain store, became a manager, saved up, and eventually bought his own pharmacy that looked exactly like the one he had built in his mind.
And it works the exact same way with relationships. The book claims that divorce begins in the mind long before any legal paperwork is filed. If you are harboring suspicion and resentment, you are actively creating separation. You attract partners based on your deep subconscious code.
He gives the example of a woman who had been married 3 times, and every single husband was overly passive and submissive, forcing her to make all the decisions. She was frustrated, asking, why do I keep attracting this type?
Because her own unconscious personality was domineering. Her subconscious was seeking out a match for her own internal code.
Exactly. So she had to rewrite the code. She started affirming in that relaxed, drowsy state, the specific qualities she actually wanted. She visualized a man who was strong, masculine, and spiritually grounded.
She didn't use willpower.
No, she didn't force it. She just cultivated the feeling of already being with this ideal partner. She ends up taking a job in a doctor's office, and within a week, the doctor who perfectly matched her visualization proposed to her.
The common thread in all of this, whether it's the pharmacist visualizing his store or the woman seeking a husband, is feeling. You don't get rich by chanting, "I am a millionaire," while feeling broke and desperate. You have to cultivate the actual feeling of abundance, the feeling of love, the feeling of health. Because the subconscious mind speaks the language of emotion and imagery, not the language of logic.
Logic is for the captain on the bridge. Emotion is the fuel for the engine room.
Okay, we've covered incredible ground today. Let's bring this all together. If you take away one structural framing from this deep dive, remember that your mind is a garden. Your conscious mind, that analytical, choosing part of you, is the gardener. Your subconscious is the rich, fertile soil.
And that soil does not judge the seeds.
Right. It does not care what you plant. It will grow whatever you drop into it, whether those are poisonous weeds of anxiety and envy or bountiful crops of health, wealth, and love.
It's an invitation to take a very honest inventory of the habitual thoughts you are planting today. You are the captain of your soul. Your engine room is waiting for your orders right now. Make sure you are giving it the right coordinates.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to really mull over. Toward the end of our sources, the book mentions that the future of a country is actually held in the collective subconscious of its people. If our individual thoughts create our personal reality, what kind of world are we collectively imagining into existence right now with our shared anxieties, our shared fears, or our shared hopes? Think about the seeds we are collectively planting the next time you plug into the daily news. Are we programming a wreck, or are we programming a masterpiece? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.